Good morning, class. This is Mr. Eggleston, and this is lesson 8.1, geometric sequences, how we can go from recursive formulas to explicit formulas. All right, just a quick review of what is a geometric sequence. Okay, geometric sequence. Okay, geometric sequence is something like this. This is a basic one. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and so forth. All right? This is geometric sequence. A geometric sequence means that you're multiplying, okay? You multiply by the same number to go from one term to the next. Okay. As compared to the arithmetic sequence that we saw a lot of, where you add the same number each time. Remember, the arithmetic sequence turned into a linear equation, a line. This is going to be different. All right, so we have to multiply by the same number from one term to the next. That number is called the common ratio. And this is a something you should have seen, is common ratio, as represented by R. And R is always the ratio of one term, the term to the right, term to right, divided by the term. For example, the ratio for this, R, would be 4, because that's the number to the right, divided by 2, which better equal 8 divided by 4, which better equal 16 divided by 8. Each of these common ratios have to be the same, and that common ratio for this example is 2. So R is 2. All right? And the first term in this sequence, A1, is equal, in this case, 2, because I started off pretty easy. And then A2 is 4, and the recursive formula, which we've seen for arithmetic sequences, that's where you start with a number and then you add the same number each time, would be A sub n, that's the current term that you want, equals A sub n minus 1, that's the previous term, times R. And they have to give you a starting value. So in this case, A sub 1 is equal to 2, and R is equal to 2. So you would say A sub n equals 2 times 2. Or I should say just R. And I should say A sub 2, the second term, will just be 2 times the first term, which is 2, so that'd be 2 times 2, which equals 4. A sub 3 would equal A sub 2 times 2, that's 4 times 2, which is 8, and so forth. That's how a recursive formula works. You build off of what you previously solved for, okay? So now with that review, let's look into this. This is talking about the monthly rent in a certain high-rise apartment building depends on what floor of the building you are on. The higher you are, the more expensive the monthly rent is. The rent for the apartment on the ground floor, and they call the ground floor on this 0. That's Europe. In the U.S., it's floor 1. We call that the first floor. But in Europe, the first floor is the 0 floor, is $720. The rent increases by 4% as you go from one floor to the next. 4% means that your growth factors, that's a phrase that you're going to get used to, will be 1 plus R, where R is 4% written as a decimal. So the growth factor is 1.04, and that's what they say here. That increases by a factor of 1.04. Okay? For each subsequent floor. Why do you think tenants are charged more for rent on higher floors? Okay? Well, I mean, this is up to you, but in my opinion, the higher you are, the better the view. So the view is better. Okay? Are better, and there is less foot traffic the higher you go. So, as you go up, the price increases because people want it. Okay. Now, what is the monthly rent for an apartment on the first floor? All right. Well, that's going to be basically you take the initial amount, $720. That's for floor 0. Okay. And you're going to add to it 1.04 times. No, we're going to add, I'm sorry. We're going to add to it 0.04. Notice 0.04 is 4% of the 720. Okay, so this works out to be 4% of 720 is, with my handy dandy calculatora, is 0.04 times 720 is $28.80. So this is floor 1, and that equals 720 plus $28.80, which equals $748.80. And 80 cents. How do you know? Because you just multiply the ground floor price, the 0 floor price, by 4%. Understand that 4%, this is something you gotta know, means 4 per 100, which is 4 over 100, which as a decimal is 0.04. That's why I use 0.04 here. Okay? Notice it's 720 plus 0.04 times 720. And you just saw factoring, and you know we could pull out the 720 because they both terms have 720, so it could be 720. Then you'll have the 1 plus 0.04 from the 1 that's here, right? There's a 1 there, and there's the 0.04 there. And that is 1.04, which we call the growth factor. 720 times 1.04. Again, the 1 is because we're taking the original amount, that's 720, and then we're going to add to it 0.04 times 720. So that's just 1.04 times 720. 1.04 equals growth factor. And notice it's just 1 plus R. It's this. Make sure you understand that the growth factor is 1 plus the common ratio. No, not the common ratio, the percent increase. Could also be a decay factor if you lose. All right, so does the rent go up by the same dollar amount each time? Well, from floor 0 to 1, it went up $28.80. So from floor 1 to 2, we're going to take it's the same calculation. We're going to take we're going to take how much the floor 1 is, which is $748.80. And we're going to multiply it by the growth factor of 1.04, which is basically doing this calculation. Except for now, the number is 748.80, not 720. All right, so this is that. So when obviously you need a calculator, so this would be 748.80 times 1.04. And that gives you 778.75. Actually has an extra decimal point at 752, but we're talking money. So that's the new price. Subtract the 748 from it to find out how much it went up, or you can just take 748 748.80 and multiply by 0.04, because that's how much it went up by. And it grew by $29.95. Do you notice the amount it increased is different? So the question is, does it go up by the same dollar amount from one floor to the next? Is no. It goes up by 4% of the current floor. And since as you go up, the current floor cost is increasing, the 4% you're adding to go to the next floor is also increasing. So it's not increasing by the same amount. Let's go ahead and I want you to do this. I already did 0. Our 0 is already given, 720. I showed you how to get the first floor, and I basically showed you how to get to the second floor. But I want you to write it out like this, okay? I want it to be written out like this. So, pause this and try to write it out, and then write the answer, all right? But try to fill this in with what you're doing, all right? Okay, so you basically, for the first floor, you take 720, and you're going to multiply it by 1.04, and that will give you $748.80. Okay? $740.80. And then we're going to take the 748.80, and we're going to multiply it again by the 1.04, which is the growth factor, which incorporates this concept of taking 720 and adding 4% of 720 to it, to the amount, for the new amount. All right? And that comes out to 778.75. And then we're going to take that 778.75, and again, to go to the next floor, we're going to add 4%. We can incorporate that by saying 1 times 0.04. And when you do that, you get 809.90. Okay? Then we take the 809.90 and multiply by 1.04, which would give us 842.30. And for the fifth floor, you would take the 842.30, again, multiply it by 1.04, and that gives you 875.99. So as you see, when you get up to the fifth floor, you're paying more than $100 more a month for that floor, okay? Notice that going from one term to the next in this sequence, this is a sequence, is we're multiplying by 1.04. It has a common ratio. Okay. So over here, put down this. This is a common ratio, not a common difference. That means geometric sequence, because we're multiplying by the same number. With R equaling 1.04. That's what we're multiplying each time. All right? So the penthouse apartment is on the 10th floor of this building. What is the monthly rent for the penthouse? Okay, so this is floor 1 right here. Notice floor 1 is just 1.04 to the first power. So let me say what we're doing. I'm going to write this in red. So what we're doing is taking this amount and we're multiplying it by 1.04 again. So that this is going to be 720 times 1.04, 1.04. All right. And then this is going to be 720 times 1.04 times 1.04 times 1.04. Now, there's a nicer way to write this, as you are probably well aware, and that's with exponents. So for the next one, I'm just going to write it with exponents. 720, and it's going to be multiplied by 1.04. Now, notice, this is to the first. This is actually going to come out to the second. So this is to the first, then to the second power. This is to the third. So this is going to be to the fourth power. So we can write it like this. And then this equals 720 times 1.05 to the fifth power. So if they want the 10th floor, that would just be the 720 times 1.04 to the 10th power. Now, let me show you how you calculate this on your calculator. Make sure you understand this. All right, so I am going to go to this. Here is my standard calculator. So you would type in 720. I will just use parentheses because you can say times 1.04, close parenthesis, and now we're going to raise it to the power of 5, I believe. No, excuse me, 10. 5 was the last one. And we hit enter. And notice we get kind of an ugly number. Okay? It's 1065.775885. But since we're talking about money, we're going to write that as 1065.78. We're going to round up in the hundredth place because that's the pennies. So this comes out to be 1065.78. So if you lived on the 10th floor penthouse, you're paying $1,000 and $1,065.78 a month. Now, we can write an expression by looking at this for the monthly rent on the nth floor. That means any floor. And so the expression would be the amount on the 0th floor times 1.04 to the nth power. And this is the rent. Okay? In this, you need to know this is what we call the initial value. That's the 0th floor. That is the common ratio. Okay? So, and that's how you can write it for the nth term. So if you wanted the 100th, if there were 100 floors, well, this is a humongous high rise, then it would be 720 times 1.04 to the 100th power. All right? Now, let's go through the CYU, the quick notes, the important ideas. First of all, geometric sequences show repeated multiplication. So they show repeated multiplication by the common ratio R. And the way we write this is would be recursively. This is the recursive. This is where I give you a starting value. This is where I give you a sub 0 equals a number. And then a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 times r. That's the recursive. So if the 0 term is is 3, and your r is 2, a sub 1 would be 3 times 2 is 6. A sub 2 would be 6 times 2 or 12. Okay? So, and that's how you would do it. All right? That's recursive. But the explicit, this is what we're headed to now, is going to be the function f evaluated at n. That's the term value. That's the value of the nth term. It's just equal to f sub 0, which is this is the initial amount. And then times r to the n. Oh, actually, it's right there. F sub 0 is the initial term, so I don't have to write that. Okay? Times r. And that's how you do it. Okay? And there you go. Have a good day.